Hello again. My name is Charles Sabo, and I'm doing another video, teaching video on a book that I've written, published, and so it's to my concern is to teach this book to those that need to learn about it. The sense of urgency, I guess, has been given to me to teach the book, even though it's not on the market yet. I've already published 2 books this year, and so this would be a third, and it's kind of like, okay, we'll wait till later, give these other 2 time to splash into the market. In case you haven't seen, I can actually hold up each of the last 3 books that I put on the market. This book here called Jesus Wept. Look at that, it looks like a reflection in the mirror. Isn't that something? Okay, that's all having to do with webcams. It's showing a reflection almost. Well, that's the book I published in 2017. And then in the month of January of this year, a book, it's a 623-page book, hardback book called Isaiah, a Bible Commentary. You can see there's Isaiah there down at the bottom, and this is the production of the manufacturing of the lake of fire from Isaiah chapter 34 verse 4. So this is a very informative commentary of the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is very hard to discern for some people. If you want to pick that up, it is a college textbook, and so you'll see that in the universities soon. The book that just released last month was the Book of Revelation of Jesus Christ. You can see it's got some pages to it. You've probably seen this online. I'm going to be referring to this book pretty much within this book of Zechariah. When you hear about it, you'll be hearing me talk about that book. That's on the market right now, and so you can buy a ebook of any of the 3, as well as a hardback copy, well paperback on the Revelation book and Jesus Wept, hard binder on the Isaiah commentary I had too. It was pretty big, and so hopefully you can pick those up, and they're very informative. This is the book that I'm teaching from right now. I've already done videos on the book of Joel and book of Zephaniah. Now I'm in Zechariah chapter 2 already, and so I'm teaching as the days go by. I want to teach these before this book comes on the market. So you can see I'm teaching from a PDF file. So if I go down, I'll come down to Zechariah. Takes a while to get down there. Where are we at here? Zephaniah 3. That was Zechariah 1. And so here we are and this is a PDF file of the book. As you can see, I'm scrolling through it. I'm in chapter 2 right now, so I'm going to start right in with chapter 2. Hopefully you learn something. Zechariah can be a little difficult to pick up, to understand, to discern. It takes digging in and doing some hermeneutics to be able to understand what is being said here. Okay, so here we are, Zechariah chapter 2, verse 1. I'll start right in. I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. Now, as per reference from Zechariah 1 verse 16, chapter 2 verse 1 begins with Zechariah seeing a vision of a man. Hebrew for man is ish, which was a human man measuring with a surveyor's line in his hand. Now, some want to say that this was the same man, angel of the Lord, who was sitting on the red horse in Zechariah 1:8, as well as 10 through 12. Not true. I will disagree due to the fact that this is a separate vision from the first one in Zechariah 1:7 through 17. This man here in chapter 2, verse 1, is simply a human man, not a cherub angel within Zechariah's vision. Now, the significance of this being a man would be apparent within the prophecy. The man represents the children of Israel, who would be preparing to measure its boundaries in order to better prepare to protect Jerusalem from its enemies. Okay, so that's what you know so far. All right, verse 2. Then said I, where goest you? And he said unto me, to measure Jerusalem, to see what is the breadth thereof, and what is the length thereof. Zechariah asked the man where he was going, seeing the measure line in his hand. Now, measuring the boundaries of Jerusalem is only performed by the land surveyor in order to plan for the construction of walls around Jerusalem. The walls of Jerusalem have historically been a concern of the people, so that the first steps had always been to measure the city so that the materials for the walls could be obtained. If you read in Nehemiah, you will see how important it was for the entire population of inhabitants to build the walls of Jerusalem. Now, this is not what's going on here, though. The walls of the Nehemiah had taken charge of getting built had already been built by the time Zechariah sees this vision. So what wall is it? It's the third temple's walls. Now, I'm going to read you something from Nehemiah 4:6 as an example of their urgency. So build we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had mind to work. Now, if we read in Nehemiah 1, verse 1 through chapter 7, verse 1, we will find how Nehemiah found it necessary to rebuild walls around Jerusalem for city's protection. Now, Nehemiah 2:17 says, right here, then said I unto them, you see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lies waste, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. Come, let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more a reproach. Right? As we read further in the vision, the concern for the walls to be built will be the people of Jerusalem in the last days, before the Lord's return. In the modern world, Jerusalem is protected by walls and gates because the surrounding Muslim nations all want to destroy the children of Israel. Right? Okay, so there's still walls around Jerusalem now. So how this is a little puzzling, but follow me. Verse 3, and behold, the angel that talked with me went forth, and another angel went out to meet him. Within this verse, the cherub angel, who had been speaking with Zechariah, went forth to speak with the man with the measuring line in his hand. He already knew that he needed to speak with him concerning building a protective wall around Jerusalem. This wall being built may be the concern of the future Israelites during the last days before the Lord will return. All right. A second cherub angel went out to join the other cherub angel. This cherub angel is no upper rank to the other, like some theologians like to apply. This cherub angel went forth to strengthen the statements being made to Zechariah. You will notice the second cherub angel used a word of urgency, run, to the first cherub angel in the statement of verse 4. If the first cherub angel did not already know what to say to the man with the measuring line, the second cherub angel then brought further instructions to him from the Lord. Now, verse 4 says, and said unto him, run, speak to this young man, saying, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as towns without walls, for the multitude of men and cattle therein. Now the second cherub angel spoke to the first with a certain sense of urgency, right? He said, run. The second cherub angel spoke to the other concerning the man measuring the boundaries of Jerusalem. He called the man a young man because the cherub angels knew that this man's age is so young compared to Zechariah's older age. Since Zechariah was standing near the younger man, the cherub angel wanted to make clear to the first which man to speak to. Zechariah is a witness to the vision, while the young man is the participant in the vision. All right. The second cherub angel told the second to say, that's a typo. I should say first. And I will fix that. I haven't published this yet, so I have a right to fix my edit my errors. All right. Zechariah was to hear what was being explained to the young man. The young man was the surveyor for the people of the future Jerusalem. The cherub angels, that's another one. I should say cherubim, plural for cherub. The cherubim angels explained to the surveyor that there will be no need for walls around Jerusalem. Therefore, he should stop from measuring the boundaries around the perimeter of the city. Jerusalem will consist of inhabited towns with multitudes of people and cattle. So I apologize for mistakes. Obviously, I do all of my own edits, so I edit as I go. So when I do videos, I do find them all because I'm speaking and teaching as I go, and I see them immediately. When you're just reading, doing the editing, sometimes you skim past them. I think I've done a physical edit on this book 4 times, and here I am finding more edits. The city of Jerusalem, during the 7-year, 70th week of Daniel, will be a city of unwalled villages, which is just as this prophecy has stated. Antichrist will guarantee Israel to be safe once he has negotiated the 7-year covenant of Daniel 9:27. Israel will feel secure and have no need for walls to protect them. This will present them with a sense of security, which will be challenged by 5 countries: Russia, Iran, Libya, Turkey, and Sudan. Where do I know this? Well, in Ezekiel 38, the battle of Gog of Magog, there's 5 countries involved in that attack against Israel. All right, Ezekiel 38:11 says, "And you shall say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages," that he's talking about Gog of Magog, "and I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, and to them that dwell without walls, having neither bars nor gates." Okay, see how this ties in? During the time of the Antichrist 7-year covenant, peace covenant, there will be no need for walls and villages, walls and gates and so forth. Little do the people of Jerusalem know that it is not Antichrist who will protect them, but the Lord. Theologians know of this confrontation as the Battle of Gog of Magog, when the Lord will rain his fire and brimstone down upon the enemies of Israel. Make a special note, Gog of Magog. There's a battle of Gog and Magog after the millennial kingdom. That's when Gog is a spirit coming up out of hell, joining his ancestor Magog up out of hell, joining Satan in the battle against Jerusalem for the final attack. This is Gog of Magog, his descendant. Gog is a descendant of Magog. All right, and he's a human, a live human. Could be Vladimir Putin. It could be him. Magog is the ancestor who settled in the southwestern part of Russia after the flood. All right, Ezekiel 38:22, "And I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood, and I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon the many people that are with him, and overflowing rain and great hailstone, fire and brimstone." This prophecy is for Israel to know that once they have come back to their land in the latter days, the Lord will be protecting them even before his return. The Lord, however, has to cleanse his people from their infidelity one more time. He will bring one more scattering or captivity, even after the battle of Gog of Magog, when Antichrist will break his 7-year covenant to protect Israel. Right? Here's in the mid-trib, Antichrist will declare war against Israel. And you can see the mid-trib all designated in these right here, the captivities of scattering of Israel here. Once the Lord returns, Israel will have been cleansed of their unbelief, and he will forever dwell safe. They will forever dwell safely in their land, because the Lord will be here. Now, verse 5, "For I, say the Lord, will be unto her a wall of fire round about, and will be the glory in the midst of her." That's interesting, huh? The cherubim angels continue in this vision, communicating with the young man throughout the entire 2nd chapter, while Zechariah witnesses this. The cherubim angels speak in the Lord's behalf, and divulge that he will protect Jerusalem as a wall of fire around it. The fire here spoken of is a literal fire, which does reflect what will happen to the armies within the Psalm 83 attack, as well as the Ezekiel 38 through 39 attack. Both attacks are to happen in the latter days against Israel. There is an additional fire and brimstone devastation upon the heathen who threaten Israel away from Jerusalem. That's in Basra of Jordan, when the Lord will protect Israel with his fire. You can read of it in Isaiah 34, 2 through 6, which that cover of that book I showed you with the fire. That's that same attack. That happens on day 2520 of the 7-year covenant. Day 2520 of the 7-year 70th week of Daniel. That's the last day, the day of the second coming. That happens right before the Lord returns. He goes over there first. You can read about it in Isaiah 63, 1 through 6. It's in the commentary I just told you about. At the end of the 7 years, Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord. That's Ezekiel 38:23, after the devastation of these Gog of Magog, fire and brimstone. That's at the beginning of the 7 years. All right, maybe the first day or two. I told of that battle in the details of that in this book. That book of Revelation of Jesus Christ, because it needed to be explained. And so if you are unclear of the battles leading up to the 7 years, it's in an introduction to the book. Actually, it is an introduction to the book. It's actually, I think, in chapter 6 when I start talking about the wars. Yeah, chapter 6, the third horseman. Or is it the second horseman, I'm sorry. During these fire and brimstone events, the Lord will be magnified as the people of the world observe that only God can protect his people in this way. All right? Verse 6. Ho, ho, come forth and flee from the land of the north, saith the Lord, for I have spread you abroad as the four winds of heaven, saith the Lord. The call for the children of Israel can be discerned here as a dual call back to Israel. Now, the first call back was directed to the children of Israel who survived the Babylonian captivity. They're reading Zechariah's writings, and they're saying, "Oh gosh, we got to go back to Israel." Look what Zechariah said. Well, they're not discerning that it's of the last days. They're just like you. They didn't understand that this was a last days event, so they're coming back. The first call back was directed to the children of Israel who survived the Babylonian captivity. The second call is for those who were scattered during the Roman invasion in AD 70. Both times the Lord had scattered them abroad as the four winds of heaven, right? He scattered them twice. The first regathering brought Israel back to Jerusalem, where they endured the times until Jesus the Messiah had come for his first visitation. The second regathering began on May 15, 1948, and has been in process even to the present day. They are preparing for the visit from the Messiah. Some think that it will be the second coming, while the rest believe that it is only his first coming. That's non-believing Jacob. The land of the north is where Israel is to flee from, which reflects Babylon in the north of Israel. Not all Jews come back from the north, Babylon, after they had been taken and sold to the Grecians. That's in Joel 3:3-8. That was after the Babylonian captivity. They were sold to the Grecians. This reference to the land of the north reflects a spiritual context. The following verse provides insight of what might contemplate concerning the land of the north. Okay, the spiritual north. Okay, deliver yourself, O Zion, that dwells with the daughter of Babylon. So it ties in with Babylon, but it's the daughter of Babylon, spiritual Babylon. In Bible prophecy, many times do prophets refer to a church as a woman or daughter. Even God's church is found to be called as his bride, right? Right here. Though the land of the north may be referencing Babylon of the Chaldeans, the daughter of Babylon here is in reference to the daughter as a church of Babylon. The daughter of Zion refers to God's spiritual church, while daughter of Babylon represents Satan's spiritual church, which is Mystery Babylon the Great, mentioned in Revelation 17 and 18. Focusing on to the last days, God is calling his people, believing Israel, to come out of the world and its abominations. The false church of Babylon has captured many people of the world in secularism and its many delicacies. The people of God's church, Zion, are commanded to deliver themselves to the righteous and come out of the evil secular world system and its secular world church, Roman Catholicism. And I can read you something from Revelation 18:2-5. It's actually a call to secular Christians who many of them are of Roman Catholicism. There are Christians in Roman Catholicism that are being called out of spiritual Babylon, right? Well, here's an example of calling people out of spiritual Babylon, only this is the Catholics. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, has become the inhabitants of devils, and the hold of every fowl, and cage of every unclean, hateful bird. And for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, being the church Roman Catholicism, spiritual Babylon. My people, that you be not partakers of her sins, that you receive not her plagues. Now, there are Christians in Catholicism. They're being called out before he lowers his wrath on them and destroys them, right? For her sins have reached into heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities, right? So it's a call from, and if you want to read about that, it's really intense in chapter 17 and 18 in this book. All right. This is verse 8 of chapter Zechariah 2. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory has he sent me into the nations which spoiled you. For he that touches you touches the apple of his eye. All right. The you spoken of within this verse refers back to Zion from the previous verse. If the Lord of hosts is speaking, who has sent him? For thus saith the Lord of hosts. Within this verse, we can see the Son of God referring to himself having been sent by his Father. He sent me, right? Hath he sent me? So the Lord of hosts is God. And he's saying this. So talk about Father and Son. People say that the only way in the Old Testament is to talk about the Father and Son. If the Jews are reading Lord of hosts here, and he's talking about somebody sent him, no one sends God. Although God the Son is sent by his Father. God the Son is the messenger of the Lord God the Father. The Father will send his Son into the nations who have spoiled, Shalal, or taken booty from the children of Israel and his church, Zion. While we live in the latter days, God's church not only consists of Messianic Israel, believers in Jesus, but the Gentile church of Christ. Because many have come to Christ since the curse had fallen upon non-believing sons of Jacob, and you can find that in Isaiah 65, 11 through 14, the church has consisted of a mix of Jews and Gentiles. The Jewish remnant, who is drawn out of the world and comes back to their homeland, per Ezekiel 36, 24, has the potential to be God's remnant, as of Zechariah 13, 8 through 9, which we'll cover later, probably sometime next week. These will be those who will come out of the 7-year, 70th week of Daniel and believe in their Messiah when they see him. Zechariah 12, 10 through 14. So there's a lot in Zechariah, as you can see. The Lord has declared that those who touch his bride is touching the apple of his eye. Think of the last time you were poked in your eye. It hurt and was irritating. The comment touches the apple of his eye refers to God the Father in this case, who will feel irritated as getting poked in the eye. He will go into the nations who have taken booty of Israel and God's church, and he will award recompense, equal treatment upon them. Okay? Right? So God's church is the bride of Christ at this point, because during the church age, you're not God's people unless you believe in Messiah. So why is Israel still being protected if they don't believe in Messiah? Because some of them will. Many of them will, especially during the 7th week of Daniel, during that midst captivity when Antichrist breaks his treaty on day 1261. Many of those will flee to the mountains and be protected for the second half, the 3.5 years. That's believing Israel, all right? And so that's why God's still protecting Israel, because there's many that will come out. All right, verse 9. For behold, I will shake mine hand upon them, and they shall be a spoil to their servants, and you shall know that the Lord of hosts has sent me. All right, so here you have Jesus again, pre-incarnate Christ, the Son of God. The Lord of hosts has sent him. He's calling his Father the Lord of hosts. Isn't this great? You got the Father and the Son being acknowledged in Zechariah. Now, Zechariah does this several times throughout his book. Zechariah 4 is all about God the Father and God the Son being the two olive trees. At the time of the Lord's second coming, he will lift up his believing remnant of Israel, take those who enslaved them, and cause them to be Israel's servants. And I'll read Isaiah 14:1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, non-believing Israel, and will yet choose Israel, believing Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Now this is talking a lot about this is after the second coming, right? Because Isaiah 14 goes on. It's after the second coming where Isaiah 14 starts, and starts talking about, with Christ there, what's happening, including the pulling of Satan down and chaining him to hell. So that's where the mercy on Jacob, who is non-believing Jacob, right? Non-believing Jacob before he rolled with the Lord in the wilderness, and then the Lord called him Israel. That's when he became believing Israel, believing Jacob, believing Israel, whatever. And so that's why Isaiah is notorious for separating them out throughout the book of Isaiah, and you'll see that if you were to read the commentary I wrote. All right, within the millennial kingdom, there will be the children of Israel living in the full inheritance of the land, as was first promised to Abraham in Genesis 15:18, and then again specified for the future in Ezekiel 47:14 through 20. We can know this to be for after the return of the Lord, because this kind of covenant could never come to pass in the current age. All right, Ezekiel 47:21 through 23 says, "So shall you divide the land unto you according to the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that you shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you, and to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you, and they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. And ye shall have an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourns, there shall be you given him his inheritance, saith the Lord God." Now, the stranger are Gentiles. So after the second coming, the Gentiles will inherit land of Israel also, as what Ezekiel's saying here. Ezekiel 47 is not about current Israel. It's about during the 70th week of Daniel and after, okay? All right, Isaiah said it first, then Ezekiel confirmed it. The total inheritance of the first promised borders promised to Abraham will be given to Israel, and also given to the Gentiles who sojourn and live within the borders of the land. The strangers will understand that the children of Israel are God's favored people, and they will be expected to be near them and eventually want to fellowship alongside of them. Them in Isaiah 14:2 refers to the strangers of Isaiah 14:1. All right, the explanation is brought forth towards how they had come to be in the land. They were taken at first as spoil from the battle, or as servant captives after the battle. Zechariah 2:9 declares that the Lord will shake his hand upon the oppressor, and they will be spoil, captives, to their former servants, Israel. He follows in Zechariah 2:10 to say that he will dwell in the midst of them. That would make that time spoken of in Zechariah 2:9 to be the millennial kingdom. Now, as was in the previous verse, the Son of God speaks in this verse. God the Messiah has declared that after he has fulfilled the contents of these last two verses, then you shall know the Lord of hosts has sent me. Look at that. He's calling his Father the Lord of hosts. Called himself the Lord of hosts and his Father. They're together. The Father and I are one, is what he says. The Lord declared that his Father, Lord of hosts, has sent him. Right? It's interesting stuff. All right, verse 10 of chapter 2. "Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come, and I will dwell in the midst of you, saith the Lord." During the millennial kingdom, the church of Zion is called to sing and rejoice, because God the Messiah will come and dwell in the midst of them in Jerusalem. In this verse, it is future tense, so the Lord will dwell in the midst of Zion in the future. Zion, who are God's people, is told to sing and rejoice now, because for lo, I come. He has promised this. Psalm 32:11 says, "Be glad in the Lord and rejoice. Be you righteous, and shout for joy, all you that are upright in the heart." Isaiah 26:1 says, "In that day shall this song be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. Salvation will God appoint for walls and bulwarks." Right? During the millennial kingdom. The song of Isaiah 26 begins with, "We have a strong city." During this time, the strong city will be protected by the salvation which God has brought to her and his inhabitants. The people will sing this during the 7 years, 70th week of Daniel, while looking forward to the return of Jesus Christ, when his millennial kingdom will be protected by him. We can be assured of this song to be sung during the 7 years because Isaiah 24 chapter 24 and 25 had been speaking of the 7 year, 7th week of Daniel. This song is to be sung in that day, right? Not at the second coming, not at the millennial kingdom, but during the 7 years. So the church, the tribulation saints, will be singing this song in Isaiah 26, right? 26:1. All right. So a little bit, go to my book, the commentary on Isaiah. I explain it in a little bit more detail. Verse 11 of chapter 2. "And many nations shall be joined to the Lord in that day, and shall be my people. And I will dwell in the midst of thee, and you shall know that the Lord of hosts has sent me unto you." Okay, so Zechariah is talking about the millennial kingdom here, because the Lord is in the midst of them. "During the 7 years of 70th week of Daniel, many will come out of their wickedness and believe that God is real. They will seek the Lord for his mercy and ask for his forgiveness. For some, it takes the threat of death coming upon them before they will seek him who has control over their eternal soul." Okay. Where am I at here? Revelation 6, 9 through 11. "And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain by the word of God and for the testimony which they had held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, do you not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given to every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled." This is the tribulation saints who had already ascended to heaven, waiting for God to pour his wrath upon those that had already killed them. They were told to wait, right? So what does that have to do with here? Well, many nations shall be joined in the Lord of the last day, and they shall be my people, right? So these are the Lord's people during the 70th week of Daniel. In Revelation 6, 9 through 11, the saints of the 7 years will have been slain after the 7 years begins, after the church had been removed during the rapture. For what John had been shown, though the tribulation saints pray to the Lord for vengeance against those who will have slain them, they will have to wait the entire 7 years to come to pass. This will be so that the full pre-planned amount of fellow servants will have come to the Lord. Their fellow servants also and their brethren. That's what it said in Revelation, I think it was 6, verse 11, right? Okay. And where was I? Oh, "And many nations shall be joined to the Lord in that day, and shall be my people," right? Okay. "After the Lord has returned to the earth, he will separate the sheep, his people, from the goats, the damned." Matthew 25, 33 through 46. Then will he be king of the earth and sit on his throne in Jerusalem, and I will dwell in the midst of you. Right? All along, Zechariah has written a testimony from God the Messiah, thus recognizing it again here in this passage. Jesus the Messiah will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and all the people will be his people. Jesus the Messiah had declared in this passage that his Father has sent him. The Lord of hosts has sent me, and he will dwell in the midst of you. God the Father and God the Son. It's just amazing. Verse 12. "And the Lord shall inherit Judah, his portion, in the Holy Land, and shall choose Jerusalem. When the Lord is king of the earth, he will then provide Judah their portion of land unto them." Right? This portion could be found in the initial division to the children of Israel from the book of Joshua, chapter 18 and 19. That's the portion that will be then divided. They've never had that portion. They attempted it during the time of Joshua, but never did succeed. Right? They left a lot of heathen around about, and they eventually lost their land again. So you'll see here, I got a a map, and I'm sorry, I'm going to scroll up slowly, of the divisions of land per Joshua 18 and 19. So you can forward as you go a little bit, but this is the original borders as spoken, and I give you where I got the map right here, the link, if you want to see that map. All right. Interesting. The above map reveals the initial portion of the tribes of Israel, as from Joshua 18 and 19. The Lord has promised to give the land back to them during his millennial kingdom. He also has promised to choose Jerusalem as his capital city and place where he will sit on his throne as king of the earth, and choose Jerusalem again. Again. All right. Verse 13. Be silent, O all flesh, before the Lord, for he is raised up out of his holy habitation. After the world of believers are told to sing and rejoice in their praises to the Lord, who will dwell in the midst of them, the Lord will also silence the nations. Could it be that the Egypt and the inhabitants around Judah, all flesh, will have a problem with the land given back to Judah? From reading what has been implied in Zechariah 14, 17 through 19, there will be certain people still remaining upon the earth who still are of the flesh and blood of mortality, and as will Israel. They will have a problem with coming to Israel to worship the king for the Feast of Tabernacles. The Lord will punish them with drought because they will have not obeyed him. This implies that there will be some defiant people still inhabiting around Judah. Therefore, the Lord commanded in this passage for those to be silent before the Lord. Most likely, this is to silence the rebellious mortals who will have problems still with the children of Israel. These are who are told to be silent or warned that the Lord has been raised up out of his holy habitation. He has come from his throne in heaven while he was sitting at the right hand of his Father. That's where you can find that. Now, Zechariah 14, 17 through 19, as I told you earlier, I'll read it. And it shall be that whoso not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. So it's going to have drought. And in the family, and if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, and they have no rain, there shall be a plague wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Egypt, and the punishment of the nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. All right. So you can see that it's not going to be total hunky-dory. There's going to be defiance still, because there's going to be mortals in their flesh, and they'll still have a problem with honoring Israel and honoring God who sits on his throne in Jerusalem. All right, and I think that's, yeah, that concludes chapter 2 of Zechariah. So short chapter. I mean, it was only 13 verses, but you can see it had nothing to do with what chapter 1 was starting to talk about, was Israel coming as a returned remnant, and then the Lord talked about the four scatterings, the four horns and four carpenters, who the horn scattered them, and the carpenters brought them back, repaired Jerusalem. Well, he then go into chapter 2 explaining the last days during the last scattering, and then what's to come of it, land of walled villages, as well as the coming of the Lord and what will happen once he gets here. So chapter 2 kind of gives you a nutshell of the last days. All right, there's more to it, which Zechariah will cover in later chapters, but it gives you a brief summary of what's going to come in these later chapters right here in chapter 2. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'll do chapter 3 real soon. There's chapter 3. And so I hopefully you are learning something about the book of Zechariah. Until then, may God bless you, and I'll see you again soon.